All right, looks like we're live. We are live, ladies and gentlemen. All right, looks like we're live. And we're actually on time because I set a later time instead of 10:45. Haha. Just pure genius. Pure genius, I tell you. All right, let's do it. Do it. Oh man, it's doing that bullshit again. Hold up. We're gonna fix that right up.
I'll remain, forever remain.
Can you guys hear me? Damn, I've been doing all that talking. I ain't hear nothing. Well, shout out to everybody watching on YouTube. Shout out to everybody watching on Rumble. Make sure you guys hit that like button, hit that share button, hit that subscribe button. That goes for you guys on Rumble and YouTube as well. So there's been a lot of talk in the media about, and social media, mainstream media and social media, about the government shutdown and how it's affecting government salaries. It's affecting even the food stamp situation. And there's been a lot of videos being put out by a certain demographic of folks. Let's just say that, of women. Let me not say people, let me say women. And they've been making threats about basically looting the grocery stores and robbing shoppers if they don't get their food stamps, as if they're owed this, right? I mean, this is why most conservatives, we don't agree with these entitlement programs, because these people literally start to feel, they go from being charity cases to starting to feel entitled to this charity that we, the taxpayers, have so generously agreed to allocate for them. I don't have a problem paying taxes if I know the tax money is going to help my fellow Americans. But the problem comes in when that money is no longer available and my fellow Americans who were being fed from that money decide that they want to victimize us, the taxpayers, who have been supplementing their meals for God knows how long. That's a little crazy, a little ass backwards. Yeah, the EBTs of TikTok, Barnes, I've heard about them. Yeah, and it's kind of sad to see people crash out like this over some shit that hasn't even happened yet. Hence tonight's topic, the upcoming EBT suspensions, the part everyone missed. And there's one big factor here that I've seen multiple streams with multiple people on panels talking about this situation, but nobody is bringing up the elephant in the room. Well, maybe I see it as an elephant, and maybe to them it's a little less significant. But to me, it's the most significant factor of the whole thing, and that is the positive benefits from cutting off the food stamps. And if you can't really wrap your mind around what positive could come from cutting off the food supply to millions of Americans, Well, here's what you have to consider. The problems, what were the problems that it caused? Giving out all these free food stamps and all this free money, all these free handouts to millions and millions of people, some who actually did need it and qualified for it, and others who didn't need it and wouldn't qualify, but they defrauded the system to get it, right? So what would be the positive from this? Well, we cut out the fraud, we cut out the waste, we cut back a shit ton of spending. That's one. But the thing that people aren't discussing is the economic effects of it, because when the expansion of the EBT or the SNAP program was enacted by the Obama administration, something crazy happened that we all are subject to. Food prices went up. And the reason why food prices went up is because food vendors and grocery stores realized that millions of people now have extra money to spend, and they're spending that money. So if there's increased demand, the prices go up. That's how economics works. So in case you guys are wondering, like, what's the root cause? Because there's other auxiliary effects that cause the food prices to go up, like the taxes on the farmers, the regulations, and the cost of production going up and so on. But the demand for the food is what really drove the prices up, and it started under Obama. And what Obama did was he gave out free food stamps to millions of people. They kind of, they softened up on the vetting process to see who qualifies, and they would basically accept anything anybody told them just so they could have something to fill in the blanks with. And then they would give them hundreds of dollars, some people thousands of dollars a month in food stamps. And what that created was an increased consumption of groceries, and it drove up the grocery prices. This is why grocery prices are so high. So in case you're wondering why the food prices are so damn high, it's the goddamn food stamps that are making the food prices so fucking high. Sorry to cuss. I didn't mean to cuss so soon. And I think that's the part that everybody's missing. And then there's another aspect to it as well that we'll get into during the show. But the economic effects of cutting off the food stamps, what that's going to do is that's going to drive down the demand for food, which will increase the supply of food in the grocery stores, which will then force the grocery stores, in order to get rid of this inventory, because most of the food products are perishable, they will have to have sales and lower the prices. So if the food stamps get cut off, guess what happens? The bums starve, and the working people don't have to spend an arm and a leg to get a shopping cart full of groceries. I think it's a win-win, because if we're going to call ourselves a free market capitalist society, guess what happens in free market capitalism? The bums stay at the bottom. That's what happens. That's the way it works. Any deviation from that, it's no longer capitalism. And I don't have a problem with capitalism, because in capitalism, not only do the bums stay at the bottom, but from among the bums, those who are in that situation but don't have that mentality, there's an opportunity for them to get out of that, to elevate up out of that, because of capitalism, because of commerce, because of free market. Poor people get rich in America all the time. And for every poor person that came from nothing, that's self-made and is successful, they all have two main qualities in common, and that is intelligence and not being a lazy ass. They're smart and they work hard. So all the people at the bottom that are perpetually at the bottom and stay at the bottom, they're either lacking both of those qualities or they're lacking one of those qualities, because you have to have both to make it through. If you have one but not the other, you could be smart as all hell and have great ideas, but they'll never go nowhere, because you were too lazy to act on. Or you can be hardworking but not too bright. You'll just end up being a good slave. to make somebody else rich on your back. And to tell you the truth, as much as we talk bad about socialism and communism, what do you think the welfare system is? It's a socialist system. It takes from it gives the government the excuse to take from the productive people and give to the unproductive people. And that is not a formula that uplifts a society. That is a formula that degrades a society. So instead of us being that crane to reach down and pull up the people from the bottom and help them get a little closer to the top, or at least get off the bottom, with the welfare system, they tell us that's what it's supposed to do. But what it has actually done is it's become a weight to drag down the rest of society. Excuse me. And the people that support the welfare program and advocate for the welfare program tend to be Democratic voters in most cases. And when you elect Democrats to run your state or run your city and set economic policy, they believe in high taxes. And what high taxes does, well, the idea behind the high taxes and how they're able to sell it to people is they give them the impression that we're going to take more, we, the government, sorry, I had to yawn. We, the government, will take money from the rich people, and we, the government, will allocate those funds to you and among you, the poor, so you can live better. That's the idea. But there are ripple effects to raising the taxes on the rich people, because the rich people own the stores. The rich people are the landlords. The rich people are the employers. So if the rich people have to pay more money to the government, that's less money they have to put into their business, which means less people they can put on the payroll, which means they have to raise the prices of their goods and their services because the high taxes has raised their operating costs. And these are the ripple effects that these Democrats, these leftists, don't tell their voters when they propose these tax hikes. So what happens is the dumbed down voters, they go vote for these Democrats thinking that, oh, we're finally going to get some relief because the rich people are going to be strong-armed by the government for their money and the government's going to give it to us. So that's what they go to the voting booth believing. And then they vote for the Democrat. The Democrat keeps his promise, raises the taxes on the rich folks, and then prices on everything else goes up. Rent goes up. Cost of food goes up. Gas goes up. Energy prices go up because everybody's taxes went up. So what happens then is the rich people now have two reasons to abandon ship and leave that jurisdiction and take their money with them. Reason number one, they're basically being extorted by the government. Who wants to live like that? Reason number two, with this government, with this newly introduced government is extortion, the cost of living has increased, which means for a rich person thinking ahead, hey, if I continue on this track, having to give more money to the government and pay more money to live, I'm not going to be rich very long. So what do I do to stay rich or get richer? I'm going to move. I'm going to move somewhere where taxes are low and the cost of living is lower and everything on goods and services are cheaper so I can keep more of my money. So that whole tax the rich idea that the Democrats like to push, it ends up being a failure. So it sounds good in theory, but when it's applied to reality, it ends up being a failed experiment. Shout out to Fallen Piano over on Rumble. Fallen Piano gets it. Fallen Piano says government-backed student loans increase tuition, and government-backed EBT SNAP increase food prices. Right. When the government gets involved, they only make the problem worse. So in these Democratic districts, in these Democratic states, you have the poor people struggling the most because the cost of living is high as fuck. And you got the rich people running for the hills. So they're not in that town anymore, hiring people, running their business, spending money, stimulating the economy. So the high taxes now fall on the backs of the working class folks because they're the only people left because they simply can't afford to move. Because surely they're not going to charge these high ass tax rates and not collect their money, not squeeze their money out of anybody. They're going to get their money, whether it's from the rich people or from your broke ass. They just going to make you broker. And you see, the economy started doing well under Trump when he came in 2017 because one of the first things he did was cut taxes. People had higher take-home pay. People were taking more money home on their paychecks, which resulted in them spending more money. Excuse me. And because they were spending more money, the businesses that they were spending more money with were able to expand, increase wages, hire more employees. So cutting taxes is what actually helps stimulate the economy and creates more opportunity for poor folks to do better. But you see, the poor people, most of them, they're poor for a reason. They're at the bottom and they're stuck at the bottom for a reason because they haven't figured it out yet. And some of them, unfortunately, never will. And what they haven't figured out is how the high taxes on the so-called rich people ends up being paid by them anyway. So they literally shoot themselves in the foot every election. So here you have these people that vote for this Democrat that says he's going to raise taxes and make everything better. They vote for the Democrat and then life gets worse. And they somehow can't make that connection that, hey, the policies that this political party, the economic policies that this political party supports are harming the economy, hurting my pockets, and keeping me in a position of disenfranchisement. Every city in the United States where there's rampant poverty, crime, lack of opportunity, all the shit they complain about when they get caught for being drug dealers and shit. Why'd you start selling drugs? Because there was no opportunity. All that bullshit. Every single city that has these problems that have been perpetual problems, they're all under Democratic control, and that's for a reason. And they remain under Democratic control because the voters are not savvy enough to understand how economics really works. They sit here and they demonize capitalism because they're being told that corporatism is capitalism. The rich people extorting the poor people is capitalism. That's not capitalism. That is corporatism. So because they're being fed a false definition of capitalism, they never learn the true essence of capitalism. And they never learn what capitalism actually is. Thus, to get to step 2 in the process, which is how can my participation in capitalism help me? How can I participate in this capitalist free market system and help myself? How can I get out there and make some money? What do I have to hustle with? What goods and products do I have access to? What skills do I have? How much money do I need to start? How much money can I make? How fast will I make my initial investment back and then move to the profit margins? How fast can that happen? You see, they never get to that stage in their thinking because that stage in your thinking is when the game changes. That's when your efforts start to pay off. That's when you start experiencing some successes, but probably mostly failures. But the difference is you're seeing success now. When before you had implemented that strategy, it was continual, perpetual failure. You see, they never get to live that. They never get to go through that process and live that experience because they're being sold a false version of reality. And as they're being sold the idea that capitalism is this horrible thing that needs to be done away with, they're simultaneously being sold the idea that communism is a better solution. And what I just explained to you with the high taxes and how it fucks up the economy, that's essentially how communism and or socialism would basically work. So while they preach to you, and this is why there are no any countries that are communist thriving economically in the world today. This is why they don't exist. Because that system simply does not work that way. Now, one would then wonder, well, why would the elites want to implement a communistic system when it was capitalism that got them rich? Well, here's why. Because once they participated in capitalism enough to where their families made it to the top of the food chain, the families then formed their own little club amongst themselves where they decided what the rules were going to be. And then then they started rigging the game. And that's how we ended up with the corporatist economic system that we have today, where the winners and losers are chosen. And the best example of winners and losers being chosen is DEI, is it not? People are being appointed to positions based on qualities outside of their ability to actually do the job and maintain that position. Sounds to me like they're choosing winners and losers. That, ladies and gentlemen, is corporatism. Capitalism is I get something for $5, but it carries enough value to where I can resell it for $7, $8, even maybe even $10. That's capitalism. So I benefit because I invested $5, purchased the item, brought the item to market, and the buyer who pays me $10 for that item, they're satisfied because they agreed to pay the price I was asking for that item. But citizen man, that means you essentially lied to them. Because if you're selling it for $10, they don't know that you paid $5 for it. So isn't that you lying by omission essentially? Well, not exactly. Because for my buyer, they have money, so obviously they participate in capitalism and economics to some degree. For my buyer understands that if this is my sale price, obviously the cost to produce this product or source this product is less than $10, and I'm making a profit. And as long as he's okay enough with that to agree to the price that I'm asking, he gets the item that he wants. He pays a price that he agreed to. And I sell my product and make a profit. Who got robbed? Who got ripped off in that transaction? You see? But the people that demonize capitalism because they want to help maintain the slave class, the people who demonize capitalism, they always frame that scenario as if the buyer got ripped off by the seller because the buyer paid more than what the seller paid for the item. There's always a victim in the equation somehow. So although capitalism is commerce between consenting parties, essentially, they sell it to you as if they're not consenting parties. One party is getting over on the other. And yes, that could happen in some cases. A lot of times you find sellers of merchants selling products for premium prices, but it's a bottom shelf product. So yes, that happens. But this is why being good at business is so important, because now you're able to read the field. You're able to vet whoever you're doing business with to avoid getting scammed, conned, or screwed over. And unfortunately, the scamming, the conning, and the screwing over is a part of the capitalist system. In fact, it's a part of any economic system. The only difference is the people that are scamming, stealing, and screwing people over are not the ones controlling the system. The people who are doing good business control the system. The people who keep the markets working control the system. The scammers, the fraudsters, the thieves, the schemers, they're just kind of like a side effect of the free commerce. Now, when it comes to communism, they sell it to you as if communism eliminates the inequality. Communism puts everybody on the same level, on equal footing. And communism also it removes the ability of scammers, schemers, con artists, thieves to operate, because they don't have access to the resources. So they make it sound like it's more fair and it's safe, when in reality, what communism is, because remember, they have to lie to you to even sell you on the idea in the first place. So you're already being conned once you buy into it, right? So these people have already established themselves as scammers because they're already lying to you about capitalism in order to even get you to entertain the thought of communism, right? And the other part they don't tell you is, in communism, the liars, the thieves, the scammers, the con artists, they end up being the ones controlling the system. So in capitalism, in free market, they're just a side effect of the system. They're just an asterisk on the page, essentially. But in communism, they're the header on the page. They control the narrative. They control the markets. And this is why communism fails every time. And that's the part about communism that they don't tell you, because they can't tell you that. Because if they tell you that, they'll never be able to get you they'll never be able to sell you on the idea, get you to buy into the idea, and trust them to be the ones in control of the resources. So in the case of the government shutdown and the possible EBT suspension, that would be eliminating a socialist program and from our economic system, which has an adverse effect on the economy by driving up prices. And that will return us to one step closer to back to being a capitalist system. Because you see, with the EBT SNAP program, the grocery stores now basically get subsidized patronage. What does that mean, citizen man? Subsidized patronage. Well, let's break that down. Subsidized means paid for by the government. Patronage means shopping at your establishment. So subsidized patronage would mean these grocery stores are essentially, they're not competing fairly, because they have a large portion of their customer base who are being given money by the government to go shop with it. So these are not organic customers spending their own money. It's almost like when the social media platforms put bots on certain channels to make the number, to inflate the numbers. So the numbers look good and everything looks like a success, but when you peel back the curtain behind the screen name, there's no one there. It's not real. It's an illusion. And if somebody hit delete on all those bots, a lot of big YouTubers won't be so big anymore. And what happens then? The smaller YouTubers who were being overshadowed by these big YouTubers with the millions of bot accounts, they are now put on an equal footing with the bigger channels and are now able to compete because now the competition is more organic, as opposed to a podcaster with an organic audience, no bots, no bought subscribers, no bought viewers, competing numbers wise, statistics wise, with a YouTuber that's got 10,000 purchased subscribers. Because he's got 10,000 subscribers, it looks like he has more credibility. More people are likely to click his video. His video is going to show up in more people's feeds. He's more prevalent in the algorithm. Thus, the organic channel gets overshadowed. But then you remove the bots, you remove that artificial inflation, and now we're back on a level playing field. Now we can actually compete fairly. So essentially, with the EBT program, removing the EBT program now puts the the grocery stores back into organic commerce. Everybody's back on an even footing, and all that extra food that they were selling every week because people was coming in buying with their food stamps, now that food becomes overstock. And who benefits from the overstock? The consumers, the organic consumers, the people who are spending their own money because they're actually concerned about how much shit costs. So we, the people who buy groceries with our own money, we stand to benefit. And also the former EBT SNAP recipients, they stand to benefit too, because yeah, they won't be getting that extra few $100s every month to buy groceries with, but they'll now be living in an economy where grocery prices are actually reasonable again. So the little bit of money they could afford to spend out of pocket for their food will actually go farther. You see what I'm saying? Do you understand what I'm saying? Are you picking up what I'm putting down? But you see, this is why they don't teach economics in school. Because if they taught economics in school, more people would have this knowledge, and the people pushing communism and socialism would never be able to sell this idea to the public as if it were a good idea and actually be able to make a case for it and have people listen. They would be laughed out of the public sphere. Nobody would want to hear anything they have to say because they would sound like the fools that they are. But because we got slightly brighter fools selling some foolishness to the dimmer fools, the shit's selling. And this is why I do what I do, because not to say you guys are fools or you're dim or anything like that, but I want to educate people, because if more people were more educated on economics, we would not have these issues. These issues would be non-issues. There would be no debate because there would be nobody on the other side defending the stupidity. Because we all, whether you're Democrat or Republican, doesn't matter. We all benefit when the cost of food goes down. We all benefit. But you see, you got these EBT bots out there, these bot shoppers that don't have to spend their own money on food. So they don't care if the price goes down or up. The prices have been consistently going up. The prices have been consistently going up. And for the most part, the EBT shoppers haven't really had a problem with it. It's the people that were spending money out of their pockets saying, hey, I remember 10 years ago or 7 years ago, I could go to the grocery store and fill up my shopping cart for $100. Now I barely get 3 bags worth of shit for $100. Because they're the ones feeling the strain. So you cancel EBT, you eliminate the bot accounts. Once you eliminate the bot accounts, everybody is on a level playing field. Even the people who thought they couldn't afford food, they just can't afford it now in this market, in this situation, because there's too much demand. And that demand that's being subsidized through the SNAP program is actually artificial demand. Those are the bots flooding the market. You see how that works, though, guys? You see what I'm saying? Are you guys hearing me? Are y'all understanding what I'm saying? I sure hope you are. Because this is important shit to know. This is why every time it's time to pass a new funding, continuing resolution to fund the government, or it's time to pass some sort of economic policy, there's always a big debate. Because one side that's arguing for what will hurt the people economically are selling it as if it will help the people economically. And the people that they're selling it to buy into it because they are unaware of how this policy will actually affect the economy because they don't know shit about economics. But the people that argue against it because they see how the effects are going to harm the people, they actually have knowledge of economics. So here you have a debate about economic policy between one side that actually understands economics and the other side that doesn't know diddly squat about economics. But yet this side that doesn't know shit still gets a chance to debate it. And the only reason why that is because there's millions of Americans in support of that side that they themselves don't know economics. So as the other side debates and says, hey, this is a bad policy, it will affect the economy this way, that way, this way, that way, they can't see it. The people on the other side, they can't see those effects. So they go with it because it sounds nice and it feels good and they're being told it will help. I mean, even with the social policies, right? The Democrats and their supporters for years were arguing about opening the borders up and letting all the illegals in. Hell, I even debated Brother Sanchez back in 2019 on that topic, and he was all for the open borders. Then the borders were open, and look what happened. Exactly what we the conservatives were saying. The cities are going to get overrun, resources are going to run thin, crime is going to increase, and the very same people that were advocating for this shit are going to be the first ones to complain about it. And that's exactly what happened. What about Stock says, is this a PSYOP? Is what a PSYOP? The food stamp situation? Or are you talking about my show? I don't know. It almost feels like you're trolling, but I'll seek clarity before I make assumptions. What up, Tyreek? Good to see you, bro. So, anyway, before I get sidetracked, the biggest thing that cutting off the food stamps would do is lower food prices. That will be the first most immediate effect, is lowering the food prices. The second thing that will happen by cutting off the food stamps, this is what happens. The Democratic Party is going to lose a whole lot of political leverage. Think about it. Isn't it the Democratic Party that's always defending entitlements and defending welfare, and we advocate for the poor people in need and da 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 da, right? But none of them would put their own money up. Well, guess what happens if there's no entitlements? There's nothing for them to advocate for. They called Obama the food stamp president because that was one of the promises he kept. He was going to expand entitlements, and he sure enough did. And people thought it was going to be great. And here we are, years later, over 10 years later. How great is it now? Not that great. Barnes says they are currently calling this leverage. If the Democrats are calling this leverage, they are the idiots that we think they are. Like, they are not smart people. Because they're trying to sell the idea of the government, this continuing government shutdown, as if it's Trump's shutdown, as if Trump got the government shut down, when, mind you, funding and reopening the government with a continuing resolution is the job of Congress, not the president. So this is in Congress's hands, not Trump. So to even throw Trump's name into that equation is erroneous. And anybody saying Trump's cutting off food stamps or Trump shut down the government, they know nothing about their own political system, and they're not even worth having the conversation with, because they lack that basic bit of knowledge to even begin to understand what's really happening. You understand? It's like you hire somebody to work on your car, and they show up and start telling you about bicycles. You're not going to let that motherfucker work on your car. He don't know shit about cars. All he knows about is bicycles. But they're calling this leverage because they're idiots. And what's actually happening is the Democrats want to allocate funding for a bunch of bullshit like healthcare for the illegals and money for the illegals and all that dumb shit. And the Republicans are like, no, we're not doing that, which is a reasonable argument. We're not doing that. They're not citizens. This is the citizens' money, and this money is going to go towards things that benefit the citizens. And the Democrats are, I guess, standing on business, and in them standing on business, the government remains shut down. And in the government shutdown, people are suffering. And more people are going to suffer if they don't pass the continuing resolution. More people are going to suffer. But the Democrats don't care about the people. Remember, this is the same political party that sells the people economic policies that end up making them poorer. So they obviously don't care about the people while pretending that they do, which makes them exceptionally dangerous. That's the person that'll pretend to be your friend and line you up and stab you in the back. That's them, because that's what they do to their own voters routinely. And the majority of EBT, SNAP recipients are Democratic voters. So if these people lose their EBT, they're gonna have to, the media is gonna have to sell this as if it's Trump's fault. And that's exactly what they're trying to do. And I think they were anticipating this, because I noticed, like, maybe a few weeks back, the whole anti-Trump things started happening on social media again, where all these content creators started doing streams, talking shit, talking bad about Trump and shit. I think they were priming the pump. And they were priming the pump because they knew that this day would come. And when this day came, they had to have something, or they had to have a way to blame Trump for it. And they had to have people in the mindset of not liking Trump to begin with. They had to make people hate Trump. You see, I was listening to Tommy Sotomayor's stream last week, and Uncle Jeff was on there, and everybody was kind of piling on him because he did some real jerk shit. But nevertheless, he said something very interesting. He brought up the two types of thinkers in the world. One is called, I think he said it was the Tesseract thinkers, and then the square and cube thinkers, right? And Tesseract thinkers operate strictly on facts. So if you're giving me a bit of information, I'm going to focus more on the information than on the person giving me the information, because I see more value in what it is that you're giving me than in worrying about what my opinions or my judgments of you may or may not be. So the information is processed first in my brain, then whatever I think of you is processed secondarily, right? But with the square and cube thinkers, they're the opposite, where they won't accept information from somebody because their prejudgment of that person supersedes their want for any useful information that they could benefit from. And I think that the majority of mainstream viewers and Trump haters are square and cube thinkers, because a lot of people don't like Trump as a person, but they will say, you know what, as president, he's done a good job. I don't like the man. I think he's a rotten piece of shit, but he's doing what needs to be done for the country, and I respect it. Those would be your Tesseract thinkers. Then the square and cube thinkers look at it like this. And this is who the mainstream media markets to. They look at it like this. Trump is bad. Trump is a bad man. Orange man bad. Everything Trump does is bad. So even if what he does is good, because Trump did it, I have to call it bad because I think Trump is bad. You see? So whatever useful information or anything beneficial that Trump is doing for the country that should be supported by all Americans, that now gets superseded by how they feel about Trump rather than what they think about what Trump has been doing. So essentially, a Tesseract thinker operates on a higher level of consciousness than the square and cube thinker. The square and cube thinker is stuck in their feelings. The Tesseract thinker operates purely in logic. And the world can survive on logic without feelings. But the world can't survive on feelings without logic. Y'all should write that down. That's a bar. So the Democrats are going to lose their political leverage because there will be no SNAP EBT entitlement program to bribe the voters with. There'll be one less entitlement program for them to advocate for and defend, which means then at that point, they'll have to switch back to the whole Trump bad, Trump bad, Trump bad, we good because we ain't Trump. They'll have to stick. That's all they'll have left. But now, after the country has been flooded with illegals, Trump's actually taking action to get the illegals out of here. Food prices done went down because EBT's cut off. And life is actually starting to get better for Americans. It'll be very, very difficult for them now to effectively as they've done, as effective as they've been in the past. It will be a lot more difficult for them now to sell that same narrative, because now there's real world evidence that everybody's aware of, not just a few back channels on YouTube, but everybody, the whole world is aware of, that things that Trump did that directly was of direct benefit to the American people. You see, this is why we say get out your feelings all the time. We say get out your feelings because your feelings mislead you. And if you operate, emotions are chaotic, emotions are temporary. They come and they go. And if you try to govern based on emotions, you will have unstable governance. Because the rules will change every time the wind blows. Yeah, Barnes did. And then there's these judges trying to make rulings to override Trump's presidential authority. They can't do that. They don't have the power to do that. And they're basically throwing everything at the wall to see what sticks. But it's not going to work. There was one judge that wanted a border patrol chief to report to her every day for daily briefings. And the border chief was like, who the fuck she thinks she is? And he's right, because he doesn't answer to her. So these federal courts are trying, and they're overstepping their jurisdiction, and they're overstepping their power, and they're setting themselves up for impeachment, because that is considered legally, it's considered usurpation of presidential power. They're trying to usurp the president. They're trying to use their power on the bench to override the president's legal authority. So I got a little slideshow for you guys, and then we'll get deeper into the lecture. So while we're here, let me just go ahead and run through the promos really quick. If you guys have not done so, please make sure you subscribe to the Citizen Man backup channel, because in case they zap me over here on Citizen Man TV, I will still have the backup channel. So make sure you follow me on the Citizen Man backup channel. Also, follow me on Rumble. That's my new home. That's where I have over 520 some odd videos of great content, great information, great teachings, great lectures. So if you like my stuff and you want more Citizen Man, Rumble is where you'll find the political stuff. There's not a lot of political stuff on YouTube because I've been censored so much that as soon as they start flagging videos, I take everything down. And the only thing you'll find on YouTube in abundance is my flat earth videos, which in themselves are pretty interesting. So if you're into that kind of stuff, I say go give it a whirl. I don't discourage it. All right, so the books are being pulled, so we can't do the books anymore, but we still can do donations. So if you guys would like to support the show, you can do so by sending in a kind donation via Cash App, PayPal, or Venmo by using the tag scrolling across the screen in the banner below. The links that are pinned to the top of the YouTube chat in the black box where it says Citizen Man TV in yellow. Just click the yellow, the box opens up, all the links are there. And you can also find those very same links in the description box of every video on YouTube and Rumble. And I want to give a big shout out to my sister Elsine, who hit me on the Venmo twice for the show. Appreciate you, Elsine. Shout out to my brother D Allen on the Cash App. He says, thanks for breaking it down. And shout out to my brother Arthur on the Cash App. He says, your information, that is reality. Appreciate you guys for that support, man. You guys are awesome. So, oh, and shout out to my sister Joy, who hit me on the Cash App a couple days ago. Shout out to you, Joy, for that support. She was watching the replay, and shout out to all my replay viewers. I really do appreciate it. You guys are amazing. So let's get into let's get down to business here. So in the political arena, everything's fallen apart for the Democratic Party. Their whole system is collapsing in on itself, and everybody is showing their hand and exposing themselves for the snakes that they are. The NAACP, so in Virginia, the black woman who's the current lieutenant governor of Virginia, she is now running for governor of Virginia. She's Jamaican, so she's a tether, but she's a conservative constitutionalist. I don't agree with everything she said in the past, but I would much rather have a conservative Republican in office than a psychotic Democrat. And the NAACP, the Black Advocacy Group, is actually endorsing the white Democrat lady that's running against Winsome Sears. And that white Democrat lady, she's a psychotic imbecile herself. There was another candidate running for office against the Republican, and the Democratic candidate made some comments that alluded to him wanting to delete his political opponent's wife and children. And during the debate with this lady and Winsome Sears asked her about it and asked her if she supports it or if she denounces it. And would you know, this white woman danced around that question as long as she could and never denounced it. But this just goes to show you exactly what most black conservatives have been saying. These so-called pro-black organizations, they're not pro-black. They're not there for black people. They're there for the Democratic Party. That's their job, is to support the Democratic Party and keep black people on the Democratic plantation. And they're so desperate to do so that they would choose a white liberal to support a white liberal over a black conservative. So if black was so important to them, you know, black first and all that bullshit, if that was so important to them, you would think they would choose the black lady. But the fact that they chose the white lady, well, that lets you know right there what their mission is. It's not to support black people, it's to support Democrats. Brad Palumbo breaks it down. He says, I would love to know what rationale there is for the NAACP to not endorse Winsome Earl Sears, who, if elected, would be the first black female governor. Well, the rationale is the NAACP is not about colored people. The NAACP is about Democrats. That's it. That's it. That's it. No more, no less. Now, speaking of Democrats, the DEI hire, Ketanji Brown Jackson. This DEI hire was appointed by the auto pen. Now, who remembers the Joe Biden auto pen scandal when Trump came out and publicly announced that Joe Biden was not running the presidency when he was president, just like I've been telling you guys, and somebody else was doing it, and all the signatures are fake because Joe Biden did not physically sign any documents himself. It was done with auto pen. An auto pen, of course, is a device that mimics a signature, and you could use it to sign documents without actually having to sign it yourself. The machine will sign it for you. Now, as the president, in executing presidential duties, it is required by law for that president to physically sign the documentation. And if the president does not physically sign the documentation, well, what happens is that documentation is no longer considered valid. So everything that Joe Biden did as president that was signed off on with the auto pen, well, House Oversight Committee just released a damning 100-page report deeming all Biden's auto pen actions null and void. Do you know what that means? That means if everything Joe Biden did with the auto pen is null and void, guess what? Ketanji Brown Jackson being on the Supreme Court, that too is nullified. Thus, she gets kicked off the Supreme Court. And boy, oh boy, oh boy, I would love to see that happen. The first black woman on the Supreme Court of the United States and the first motherfucker to get kicked the fuck off. Wouldn't that be something? And wouldn't that be a terrible look for black women? A horrendous look for black women. But did you think the Democrats cared about that when they put this woman in there in the first place? No, they didn't. They wanted to make black people look stupid, so they found the dumbest black motherfucker they could put up there, put her up there, and gave her power. Mind you, there's millions and millions of black female judges out there that are actually qualified, that would actually do a good job. So do you think if Joe Biden was interested in having a competent black person up there to make black people look good, don't you think he would have chosen somebody who was good at the job rather than this nincompoop? I'm just saying, man. That would blow my mind. I know Tommy Sotomayor would have a fucking field day with that shit. I can hear him now. I can hear him now. Ketanji Brown Jackson, ladies and gentlemen, the first black woman appointed to the Supreme Court and the first motherfucker that got kicked off. Who knew? Like I can hear it now. But that would make for some interesting headlines. So I'm going to follow that. Now, here's something even more interesting that lets me know that things are getting hot. And I believe that the military is getting involved in a lot of shit. First of all, Trump just recently threatened to send, quote unquote, more than the National Guard to these Democratic cities. You know what that means? He will openly, if he does go through with it, that means simply that he will openly announce that they are more elite forces on the ground in these cities rather than just your rank and file National Guardsmen. But the fact that he said it as if it were a threat of a possible future action leads me to believe, in conjunction with all the other evidence we've explored, that this has already been done. He's just threatening to publicly announce it as if it's going to be done. But the general reports, FBI Director Kash Patel has reportedly stopped Tulsi Gabbard's closest advisor from investigating whether Charlie Kirk's assassination had ties to foreign intelligence operations. Now, everybody is mad at Kash Patel about this, right? Because we all know Israel killed Charlie Kirk, according to the narrative that Charlie Kirk is dead, based on the narrative of Charlie Kirk actually being dead, not faking his death. Israel killed Charlie Kirk because Charlie Kirk flipped on them and he wasn't supporting them anymore and they had to get rid of him because he was too powerful of a voice, blah, 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 blah. Well, here's the thing. Charlie Kirk faked his death, but Israel still plotted an assassination attempt, but it was thwarted by Charlie faking his death. And remember that plane we talked about that took off about 20 minutes after the shooting and disappeared for an hour and then came back or whatever? Well, apparently that plane was occupied by Egyptian military, I believe in Egyptian intelligence. And if you know anything about the relationship between Egypt and Israel, they are not friends. In fact, they had a whole war with one another in the 90s, I believe it was, or the early 2000s. I can't remember. So Egypt actually went to war with Israel before. And now we have rumors of Egyptian military involved with the Charlie Kirk thing. But of course, on social media, it's being put out as if Egyptian military helped kill Charlie Kirk. But I believe the Egyptian military helped Charlie Kirk escape the Israeli assassins. That's what I believe. Because again, Egypt and Israel are sworn enemies. Have been since probably the beginning of time. Or at least the beginning of Israel. So when you look at Kash Patel stopping Tulsi Gabbard's closest advisor from investigating ties to foreign intelligence, it could mean that Kash Patel is trying to protect the Egyptian intelligence that helped Charlie Kirk escape in order to keep it under wraps that Charlie Kirk faked his death. Or it could also mean that Tulsi Gabbard and the people on her team are not, they're infiltrators. They're infiltrators. And because they're infiltrators, communications, any intelligence communications with them now has to be cut off. Because remember, Tulsi Gabbard started as a Democrat. Now all of a sudden she's sucking Trump's nuts. And all the dumbass conservatives, yay, Tulsi came to our side. I don't trust a Democrat that jumps ship. I don't trust them. Stand on business. Stay a Democrat. You can change your position on the issues and agree with the Republicans, but you stay a Democrat. You don't come over here calling yourself a Republican. You wear that label that you wore so proudly before you disagreed with them. You keep that label so we know who the fuck you are. But people that jump parties and jump ship the way Tulsi Gabbard did, I smell infiltration because Democrats are well known for that shit. This is how we got so many rhino Republicans. This is why there's pictures of George Bush and Michelle Obama hugged up and shit. But anyway, it could also mean that any intelligence, any information pertaining to foreign intelligence involvement in Charlie Kirk's assassination, quote unquote, and I use that term assassination lightly because you know where I stand on that. All that information is being turned over to the military. And if it's being turned over to the military, it now goes under classified. It now becomes classified information. And well, nobody else can see it except the Joint Chiefs, the president, and whoever is in charge of the unit that's dealing with the classified information that's on the mission. Thus, Kash Patel had to step in and say, hey, don't worry about that info. It's been passed on. So there's three scenarios. Kash Patel helping cover up the fact that Charlie Kirk faked his death with the help of the Egyptian military. Kash Patel simply not trusting Tulsi Gabbard and the people around her with that information because they might leak the information. They might go to those foreign intelligence agencies and say, hey, the FBI is on to you. Come up with cook up a cover story, or let me help you escape. Or it could be that the military is getting involved and all that foreign intelligence information is now in their hands and everybody else is basically a shut door. Once it goes to DOD, civilian law enforcement is no longer, it's military jurisdiction now. So those are three possible scenarios for why Kash Patel made the move that he made. I believe all three possible scenarios are quite reasonable, and if not more reasonable than the idea that Kash Patel is a traitor and he's jumping ship and protecting Israel. Because that too could be deduced from this, and that too could be an assumption as well. But Kash Patel did make some references about Vikings and Viking torture methods And I believe that Kash Patel is also aligned with Trump against Israel, but he just can't say it because Israel controls the majority of our government and they have hit teams everywhere. So this is a war that has to be fought gently, and prudently. And these are all moves of prudence to ensure success of the mission. If you have infiltrators in your midst, you cannot just go around openly announcing, hey, I have infiltrators in my midst and I'm going to find you. No, you don't do that. You set traps, you run tests, and then you suss out who the traitors are. Back in the day, the mafia, what they would do when the mob boss knew there was a rat in the organization, what he would do, he would call a meeting, but he wouldn't openly announce that, hey, there's a rat and I'm going to find you. No, he would never do that. That would be stupid. That would make it more difficult to find the rat because now the rat knows that you're aware of his presence. The key to ensure success is to make sure that the rat does not know that you're aware of him, because then you catch him slipping. So what the mob boss would do is he would call in the crews one by one, and he would send each crew on a mission, but it was a blank mission. They would think they're going to pick up some dope, drop off some dope, or, do a hit or whatever they were going to go do. They were sent on a mission. And as each mission was completed, whoever the rat was, that would be where the cops would show up. So let's say he would send all the crews out and say, hey, my man got 10 kilos over here. I need you to take this money and go pick up the kilos. So the guys would go to make the pickup. And in some cases, where there wasn't the rat in the crew, the pickup would happen. Everybody would make it back safe. In the crew that had the rat, the pickup wouldn't happen because the cops would show up. So whatever crew the cops jumped out on, now we know there's a rat in that crew. Now we look at how each case goes. Whoever gets the lightest sentence, he more than likely is the rat. Or if the guys don't get arrested and they somehow get away, now the guys know who the rat is. So you have to get the rat to expose himself in order to successfully, weed him out, essentially. So it seems like there are rats in the Trump administration, and those rats are being trapped and cornered. And I believe Tulsi Gabbard is one of them. I could be wrong, but I believe it because she used to be a Democrat and I don't trust her. And she looks like she does a lot of coke. Give me a second, guys. All right, I'm back. So let's go to slide 4. And these are all signs of the deep state collapsing. That's why we're going through this. So Donald Trump put this out on Truth Social. And he says, the Ronald Reagan Foundation has just announced that Canada has fraudulently used an advertisement, which is fake, featuring Ronald Reagan speaking negatively about tariffs. The ad was for $75,000. They only did this to interfere with the decision of the U.S. Supreme Court and other courts. Tariffs are very important to the national security and economy of the USA. Based on their egregious behavior, all trade negotiations with Canada are hereby terminated. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So no more negotiating with Canada, because they try to use Ronald Reagan to basically twist his words to try to influence the Supreme Court. That's interesting. So let's look at the all capitalized letters, right? You got fake, comma. Tariffs are very important to the national security and economy of the USA. All trade negotiations with Canada are hereby terminated. Sounds to me like Canada made themselves a threat to our national security. It sounds to me almost like Trump is declaring Canada to be an enemy. Canada is aligned with Israel. Canada is aligned with the Rothschild banking system. And now Canada's cut the fuck off from the United States. Also, in economic news, the President Trump has been doing tours in Asia, and he just had a meeting with Xi Jinping shortly after, a few weeks, I should say, after he had his meeting with Vladimir Putin. So as much as we think the U.S. and BRICS and the BRICS nations are enemies, they're actually allies, and they're economic allies. And I believe this is part of the preparation for the full rollout of Nasara here in the United States and Jasara worldwide, because China and the United States are always constantly being projected in the media as if they're enemies. But economically, we're allies because a lot of our manufacturing is in China. We import a lot of goods from China. Most Americans fucking love Chinese food. So economically, they're not our enemies. They're actually our allies. And check this out. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, that's this guy, who will be traveling with the president during his trip to Asia, joins us tomorrow to discuss the state of the U.S. economy, from the fight against inflation to the latest on tariffs and trade. Okay? So Trump is taking a trip to Asia, and the Treasury Secretary is going with him. So it sounds like they're going to talk money, talk trade, and talk economics on this Asia tour. Could it be that now that the BRICS are starting to go fully operational with the BRICS Development Bank and the quantum financial system using gold-backed currencies, could it be now that Trump is coordinating with the BRICS nations in order to maintain some sort of business relationship, even though we'll still be on the fiat currency for a while they're on the gold-backed currency? Possibly. I think that's what it is. And all this is happening right around a time when one of the biggest entitlement programs in the United States is about to be cut: food stamps. Major economic changes are happening. What slide was that? 5. Let's go to 6. So here's some weird stuff. Here's your weirdness for the day, for the night. They say Robin Williams, the late comedian Robin Williams, they say he's alive. He is the actor behind the mask of the Argentinian president Javier Milei. All the world's a stage. I can see it, and I can believe it. I can believe it, because after years and years and years of covering the Biden presidency, or what I call the Biden show, I do not put this beyond the realm of possibility. Am I 100% sold on the idea that it's Robin Williams? Not necessarily, but I can see it. I don't think it's beyond the realm of possibility. And I frankly wouldn't be surprised if it were true. And you should, at this point in time, you shouldn't be surprised by it either. But I just wanted to lay that one on you. If you guys want to screenshot it and share it, it's whatever. I don't mind. Share the content, clip it, put my name out there. Do the rounds for me. Now, I thought this was interesting because I've been telling you guys that the Trump administration is going to break with Israel eventually, and it has to be done slowly and tentatively because Israel has the United States physically held hostage. They got hit teams on the street. They got organizers running these protests and these riots, which, again, the Trump administration using the military is going after. They got elite hit teams. They got gangbangers on the payroll. They got cops on the payroll. They own 90% of Congress. The infiltration is pretty deep. But what J.D. Vance did here, it's pretty telling, and it seems very symbolic. The vice president of the United States opted out of the wall-kissing ritual in Israel, instead choosing to visit the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. So J.D. Vance ain't kissing no fucking wall. And J.D. Vance is Trump's basically Trump's second in command. I think J.D. Vance is being used to send a message that Trump really wants to send, but he can't send it without risking fallout. And by fallout, I mean retaliation by Israel. Yeah, I think this is huge. This is huge. And what else is huge is this confirmation of what I've been saying since the time the Israel-Gaza thing started, which was Israel killed their own people, Israel attacked their own people, and blamed Hamas so they can go level Gaza. Former Israeli Prime Minister Yoav Gallant admits Israel killed its own with Hannibal directive on October 7th and blamed Hamas. Helicopters, drones, and tanks were used. And if you want to know about the Hannibal directive, I got a whole stream about it on Rumble. Basically, the Hannibal directive is an order that says if any Israeli military or civilian were to be captured by an enemy force, you kill the enemy, even if it means killing them too, killing the hostages too. Which means the Hannibal directive basically means once an Israeli gets taken hostage, you kill the Israeli, you kill everybody else. And the Hannibal directive was used for Israel to murder their own people. Remember, these are the kings of false flags. They did 9/11, right? So if they'll do it to us, you think they won't do it to them? But this is what I've been saying from day one, from the time this shit happened. Israel is behind it all. All. That's right. All of it. Not some of it. All of it. All that bombed out footage in Gaza and not one dead militant with a blown up AK-47 in his hand. Not one. I have not seen one single weapon in the hands of Gazans. And the only weapons I've seen in Gaza were in the hands of IDF soldiers who invaded the place. So we all know it's a genocide. Trump knows it's a genocide, but Trump also knows there ain't much he can do about it until that entrenchment and that infiltration is wiped away. Hence, military on the street, National Guard on the street, military special forces doing raids, shutting down these organizers and the funders of these riots. Those are the operatives that will be used to try to turn America upside down. They're also running investigations and going after these potential mass shooters and these left-wing wind-up crash dummies, because they're the types that would take a payout to go carry out a mass casualty event. And not only that, the foreign intelligence that Kash Patel stopped Tulsi Gabbard's advisor from investigating, well, that foreign intelligence is also being intercepted. That's the Israelis. That's the Mossad. Now, the breaking away from Israel, it's going to happen soon. But Trump needs the BRICS nations on his side in order to do that. And the fact that he's taken Scott Bessent and he's going to Asia after he just met with Xi Jinping is very telling. It's very telling. And right after he met with Xi Jinping was when Xi Jinping made the threat to Israel, saying, we will destroy your entire, we will wipe you off of the map if you touch one of our aid ships. And so far, Israel has not touched any Chinese ships. Funny enough. But Matt Van Swole, that's a funny name. He says, I ran down the rabbit hole last night. What I've discovered is shocking. I searched through thousands of arrests in my county, and every single Hispanic individual who has been arrested is labeled as white. Not one, not two, hundreds. How long has this been going on? And there they are, clearly Hispanic, but their paperwork labels them as white. And the reason why they're doing that is to manipulate crime statistics. So when they say, oh, since Trump's been in office, white crime has increased. Those are the white people who've been increasing crime. And it also helps them cover up the fact that these illegals, these foreigners that are pouring into the country, are bringing a crime wave with them. Because if all their paperwork has them labeled as white, when the statistics are put out, the numbers will be skewed, and it will reflect more white criminals than the actual number of white criminals that actually exist in the real world. And that's because they're taking the Hispanic criminals and calling them white. That's what this is about. This is not by accident. This is not a typo. And they're doing this all over the country. But again, now that it's all being exposed and it's being discovered, the jig is up. The curtain's been pulled back, and there's nothing they can do to hide it anymore. And any attempts to justify it or hide it or cover it up, it's only going to serve to hurt their credibility. So they can't. Now, Brandon Johnson, the mayor of Chicago, Mr. Open Borders himself, he says, if you call migrants illegal aliens, then you must call black people slaves. Now, why the fuck would this man say something that goddamn stupid? Because why are you equating migrants to black people? That's number one. And that's a slap in the face to black people. Because when the migrants came over here, the illegal aliens came over here, they were treated way better than the black people were treated by the government who've been here their whole lives. So to equate the two groups is insanely insulting. And the other point is the term illegal aliens is what's actually written in the federal law. So for Brandon Johnson to say this means either he doesn't know that federal law has these people designated as illegal aliens, or he knows it, but he also knows that the idiots he's speaking to don't know it. You must call black people slaves. But Brandon Johnson ain't no slave. He lives in a mansion worth millions of dollars. But again, these are your Democrats. These are your Democrats pretending to love you, pretending to care about you, pretending to advocate for you, while everything they're actually doing is in advocacy and protection of foreigners. Foreigners. All these Democrats talking about the illegals aren't being given due process and blah, blah, blah. They don't get due process. Due process is a constitutional right reserved for citizens and legal residents of this country. An illegal alien is neither a citizen or a legal resident. Thus, he gets no constitutional protection. He's a foreign enemy combatant. And that's what they're being treated as. Illegal aliens don't get constitutional rights. And anybody that tries to make you believe otherwise, they're blowing smoke up your ass. And these Democrats know that. They know that. But they also know that we don't know that. So they'll play that game. Look at this white guy in the back. He looks scared. He's like, "Oh my God, is he really saying this shit?" This man is, and again, another black man, another black person in a position of power in the Democratic Party, and the man is a complete fucking idiot. He's soft, he's soggy, he's feminine, he's effeminate, he's weak. But they put him in power because they want to use that image of this soggy, weak man. They want to use that image to project it on the black men. They want the world to think that black men are like this. It's the same thing Dame Dash was saying to Charlemagne in his last Breakfast Club interview, when he started calling Charlemagne gay for doing gay shit, playing gay games. Dame Dash said, "You're not a proper representation of black masculinity." And young black men, young black boys are going to watch this show and see you doing all that gay shit and think that's cool and that's acceptable from a masculine man when it's not. But that's the image of the black man that the mainstream media and the system wants to project. Because if he's weak, he's soggy, and he's possibly gay, he's not a threat. But if he's straight, he likes women, he probably has or wants a family, so he's not going to go along with our anti-family bullshit. He's in business. He wants to make money. So he's not going to go along with our entitlement bullshit. He's of no use to us. We want the weak, effeminate black men so we could sell them victimhood. Because you see, you can't sell victimhood to a truly masculine man. Even when that masculine man is in fact the victim, you'd be hard pressed to get that man to play victim. Most masculine men, when they're done wrong by other people, the first thing they do is try to think about what I could do different next time. Where did I go wrong to allow this? They don't look at it as, "Oh man, this person did this to me." You know what a masculine man does? What an alpha male does? He says, "Damn, how the fuck did I let this happen? What did I do to bring this upon myself? Oh, that's right. I allowed this motherfucker in my circle." And thus, the problem that they experience dealing with that person in the circle, they'll never experience that problem again because now they'll know not to let people like that into the circle. Real men are problem solvers. And if you keep having the same problem over and over again with different people, at some point you got to stop and say, hey, I'm the fucking problem. But you see, weak, effeminate men, they lack accountability. And that's what the establishment wants. Because if they lack accountability and it's always somebody else's fault, well, if you're black, it's very easy to now sell you the idea that you're a bum because the white man is keeping you down. Not you're a bum because you're lazy and stupid. Because if I say you're a bum because you're lazy and stupid, now I'm essentially giving you a solution to not be a bum. But if I want you to stay a bum so you can stay dependent on me and eat out of my hand, I'm going to tell you you're a bum because the white man's making you a bum. Here's some free food. Come eat it out of my palm, little doggy. I can control you. But you see, hang on a second. But you see, if I say you're a bum because you're lazy and stupid, I'm now giving you something to reflect on. I'm now holding the mirror up to you. I'm now giving you something about yourself that you can change on your own that will eventually lead to you getting out of being a bum. Oh shit, I'm a bum because I'm lazy and stupid. Well, let me try to learn something and acquire some knowledge so I won't be stupid. And let me get out and do something so I've stopped being lazy. Now I can change my bumdom. I can change my bumhood. But if you believe, hey, I'm a bum because the white man's keeping me down, guess what? You'll always be a bum because you're looking at the problem. You're trying to apply an incorrect solution to a very simple equation. You know who does that a lot? Plays the victim and lacks accountability like that. A lot of women do that to their husbands, right? They get married. When they get married and they're young, they're fine and they're in shape. And then as the years go by, they get old and they get fat and they let themselves go. And then they wonder why their husbands cheat. Oh, he cheated because he's a dog. Oh, he cheated. No, he stayed married to your fat ass for 20-something years. He cheated because he wanted to feel something nice up under him for once. That could have been you. It was you, but you let yourself go and you were no longer attractive to him. So yeah, he might have been a dog for cheating and it's wrong and he shouldn't have done that. But his reason is legitimate. And guess what? The problem that you're now dealing with, you could have fixed that problem because you have a role to play in that problem. Because he wasn't cheating when you were fine and slim and attractive, was he? No, he wasn't. But now you're fat, sloppy, and soggy, and he cheated because you let yourself go. You're no longer attractive to him. So if you don't want him to step out or have a wandering eye, make yourself more attractive. Or if you want to find a new relationship and have a better relationship, be attractive. Don't let yourself go. So yeah, we could sit around and call him a dog all day and blame him, but guess what? It's not going to unfat you. And the next man you get with might do the same thing because guess what? You're still fat. So what's more helpful to you? Addressing the problems within you that had contributed to your husband being a dog, or just pile on your husband and keep telling him how much of a dog he is? Which one would be a more productive solution for that woman? The self-examination and the self-improvement, or playing the blame game? You see what I'm saying? And that playing the blame game, this is why the Democrat Party is controlled by women, because women are experts at this. And when I say women, I say that in general, which implies that there are always exceptions. So if it doesn't apply to you, don't get mad at me. Okay, I'm speaking in general. And ladies, y'all know this about other women too. Y'all deal with women more than men do because y'all are women. So y'all know. Y'all know, y'all got that homegirl that come to you all mad, telling you about how somebody did them wrong. And when as they're halfway through explaining the story to you, how it's all their fault, in your mind, you're thinking, wait a minute, you're the problem. But you can't say it to her because she'll get mad at you. Most women who's got female friends have experienced that. But that's that lack of accountability, and that's what keeps the Democrats keeping their constituency in that state of mind, is what helps keep the Democrats in power. So when the Democrats get in and they raise taxes and prices on everything goes up, it's corporate greed. It's the rich wanting to get rich off the backs of the poor people. It's everything else except the motherfucker I voted for. But if the people looked within themselves and said, you know what, these bad economic policies are a result of the people I voted for, you know what's going to happen in the next election? They're going to vote differently. But as long as they lack that accountability, they'll keep voting for the same bullshit, living with the same problems, and the problems will never get solved because they're not being properly addressed. Or should I say they're not being correctly addressed? They're playing the blame game. So, self-accountability versus the blame game. Which one is more helpful? Which one is more productive? Which one is more beneficial? Accountability. Like all these people on the food stamps, they lack accountability. You lay down and had those kids. It's your job and the man's job to feed those kids, not the government's job. And if you're mad that your food stamps are going to get cut off, you need to examine yourself. And you need to take accountability for your inability to be able to buy food. Now, what that accountability looks like, it might look like finding a better job. It might look like cutting back on wasteful spending so I can budget out more money towards groceries. It might mean actually being responsible with the little bit of money you do have so it can stretch farther. Accountability. That's what it comes down to, and they lack accountability. And with this lack of accountability comes that sense of entitlement. So it's not their fault they can't feed their kids. It's our fault that they can't feed their kids. Is that going to get their kids fed? No. But the women out there that are coming to terms with it and saying, you know what, the free ride is over, I got to do something, they're actually holding themselves accountable. And they're going to come out on top. They're going to be able to feed their kids. Meanwhile, the ones sitting around blaming everybody else for their inability to feed their own damn kids, from amongst that group, that's where you'll find your robbers and your thieves and your looters and the people that are going to resort to crime because they're not getting their free shit anymore. And I'll tell you right now, if the food stamps get cut off and these were black women making these threats, let me just be clear about that, and these women decide to try that shit, people are going to they're going to get killed. It's going to be violent. And once the violence starts and a couple of them get hurt, that shit will die down quicker than, I don't even know. That shit it'll be over with. It'll be up and over. And at first I was saying, I hope they do try it so they could fuck around and find out, because maybe then they'll learn some accountability. But then on the other hand, I hope they're just talking and they don't do it, because I don't want anybody to get hurt. I don't want to see people get killed over shit like this. I don't. It ain't worth dying over. And motherfuckers will kill you for their food. You try to, if me and my wife are coming out the grocery store with a cart full of groceries and you run up on me and try to take my groceries, I will shoot you in the dick. I most certainly will. And I will aim for that region. And I will put 3 to 4 rounds in that region. So every time you go sit down to pee, you'll remember me. And hopefully that will make you a good citizen. At least you'll be good to the toilet bowl. Because sometimes you stand over that toilet bowl, you might miss a time or two. There's piss all over the damn toilet. But yeah. And there's millions of Americans that feel the exact same way I feel about it. But I hope it doesn't come to that. I hope they're just talking and they don't try it because it's a bad idea and it won't end well. And I noticed something, right? And I noticed this amongst black women a lot, right? When they do fuck shit on a national level and it gets called out, they always say black people instead of black women. And I don't know why they do that. Because when it's time to allocate DEI power, the women separate themselves. But when it's time to take accountability for the fuck shit, they include the men and say black people. I'll give you an example. There was a hair store that opened, I think, in either Texas or Atlanta. It might have been Texas. I guess this famous hairdresser opened up a beauty supply store. And thousands of black women showed up because he was giving away, I guess as a promotion, he was giving away free bundles of hair. Thousands of black women showed up, some with children in tow. And they basically rioted at the man's store, ran grand opening, grand closing, ransacked the place. Cops had to come. One person, I think, got stabbed and ended up having to go to the hospital. And I applaud these women that took to the internet and were demanding accountability and saying that, hey, we need to do better. This is a bad look. We should not behave this way. What happened to being civilized? But what I noticed is the women that were calling out the bad behavior, instead of saying black women, we need to do better, they kept saying black people, we need to do better. And that kind of bothered me a little bit because there were no black men involved. The only black men involved in that situation was the guy that owned the store that had to shut his fucking store down and lost all that money. But the people responsible for doing it were women. And the women that were calling them out couldn't even be honest enough to say, black women, we need to do better. So even in trying to hold these women accountable, the other women failed to do so. So there is a serious lack of accountability there. And that's what feeds the entitlement. And that's what makes them feel so entitled and so emboldened to take to social media and make those kinds of threats. Now there's extra security at the grocery stores. If you've been to the grocery store in the last few days, Nate the Great says he didn't lose no money. He was giving it away anyway. Well, I say he lost money because he had to shut his store down, so he couldn't sell shit. Because remember, the free shit was a promotion to get people to come. Once the people came and got the free shit, some of them were going to shop. And then once that shit ran out or was used up, they would come back and shop. So it was like an investment in future business, so to speak. And I understand that concept quite well because I've done jobs for clients where, things didn't go as planned Something got fucked up, but I always came back and fixed it, even if it meant me taking a loss on that job. And what that did, even though there were mistakes and errors made that had to be corrected and they were costly to me, it wasn't costly to the customers. And most times the customers would actually call me back for repeat business because they appreciated the fact that I came back and fixed the issue. So the money I lost on fixing that issue, I chalked it up to an investment in future business. And when they call me again for future jobs, that's the return on my investment, a repeat customer. You see what I'm saying? I think that was the concept he was trying to go with there. But apparently, unfortunately, the people he was marketing, his consumer base, were made up of unruly people with no sense of accountability. Hell, no sense, period. But anyway, the lack of accountability that's being promoted by the Democratic Party is what's feeding this entitlement attitude. And it's causing a lot of people to remain at the bottom economically because they're not being encouraged to examine themselves and say, hey, what can I do differently? Because if it's the white man's fault, it ain't nothing I'm doing wrong. It's the white man's fault. It ain't the white man didn't hire me for that job because I came in there talking stupid with tattoos on my fucking face. No, it ain't that. It's they didn't hire me for the job because they racist. So you'll never stop to think, hey, let me get these tattoos, these stupid ass tattoos removed off my face, and let me speak proper English when I go do these job interviews. Nope. They're going to continue talking stupid, keep showing up with tattoos on their face and wondering why nobody wants to hire them. And if it's a black employer that won't hire them, they a coon, they a sellout. If it's a white employer that won't hire them, they a racist. So it's always somebody else's fault. And this is a big part of the reason why in the black community, especially, the same problems have been persisting for so long because of this lack of accountability. And any person that says, hey, black people, we need to do better. We need to do X, Y, and Z differently. We need to stop doing this and start doing that. They demonize that person. They say, why are you bashing black people? Why are you talking down on black people? How am I talking down on you when you're already fucking down? Stupid. That's number one. And number two, if I wanted you to be down, I wouldn't be giving you advice on how not to be down. I would be celebrating that you're down. I would be encouraging you to stay down. I would be selling you scapegoats that you can blame for your downward mobility. So that way you will never rise. But the people that speak up and say, hey, black folks, y'all fucking up. Those are the people that actually care. Those are the people that actually want to see black people win. But you can't win if you don't hold yourself accountable. It's like if you go play a sport, you go fight a boxing match and you lose. Yeah, it could be that fighter is just a much better fighter than you are. Or it could be that you need to do more training and you need to brush up on your skills. Which approach would be more helpful to you as a fighter? Saying, hey, I need to brush up on my skills, or saying, hey, that guy's just better than me? You see what I'm saying? Accountability versus scapegoating. And these black Democrats have been using racism as a scapegoat to get black people to avoid accountability. And the Democrat Party as a whole has been using scapegoats to get their entire constituency to avoid accountability. Yeah, Nate, he says it goes to show how the black women is still treating the black man bad with no respect. Yeah, and you know what? I never was a believer in that post-traumatic slave syndrome thing, but I think the dynamics between black men and black women does stem from slavery, with the emasculation of the black men, the buck breaking, the master raping the wife and sending her back to her black husband that couldn't do shit about it, that type of shit. It's a lot. It's a lot, and it's generational, and it's going to take generations to correct it. But what kept black people strong in the past, when we were in a much better economic situation, owning land, owning property, owning business, what kept black people strong was because of the segregation and the limited interaction commerce wise between black people and white people. They couldn't blame white people for shit. So anything that went wrong amongst them, they had to solve it and figure it out themselves. And they did. But once integration happened and there was more intertrading between blacks and whites and more interactions between blacks and whites, now white people are more present in black spaces and black people are more present in white spaces. So now white people can be used as a scapegoat. So integration actually made us soft, made us weak. Yes, power to the people. We know there's a difference between African and black. We've discussed that. The term black is uniquely American. I'm aware of that. But that's a whole different discussion for another day. Now let's get back to the food stamp thing, because I know you guys want to hear more about the food stamp thing. Aside from lowering food prices, the food stamp thing is also going to take away the Democrats' political leverage. Now, South Carolina governor, let me get my camera on. I ain't had my camera on all show. Notice y'all hit the Cash App more when my camera's on. So, oh, and it's my daughter's birthday this Monday. So anybody feels like gift giving, tonight will be the night. So shout out to y'all for supporting the show, man. Appreciate it. South Carolina Governor Henry McMaster activated the One South Carolina Fund on Tuesday, mobilizing the state guard to aid food banks statewide. The action responds to federal SNAP benefits halting for 550,000 residents starting November 1st, with calls for public donations to support local feeding partners. So this is great what the governor of South Carolina is doing. He's showing that his state has the ability to feed their own people. Because if the federal money is going to run out, South Carolina has been ran so well by the Republicans that they have their own state funding that they will be able to supply their citizens with. Now, granted, economically speaking, he's basically resubsidizing the bot shoppers, which means as long as that EBT program is alive and running, food prices will remain high because demand will remain high. But it's a noble thing that he's doing, because he probably genuinely believes that people's lives are going to be in jeopardy, and so something has to be done about it. And this is why being dependent on the government is no good, because if the government pulls the plug, you die with it. You want to be independent of the government. So when they do pull the plug, you can sustain. That's 11. Where is 12? There we go. Now, in the midst of all this, with the SNAP benefits being suspended, or due to be suspended, I should say, Donald Trump allocates $300 million of tariff revenue to fund WIC during government shutdown. And WIC is for women and infant children or some shit like that. Women and babies. WIC is where they give you the vouchers to get like milk and baby food and formula and all that stuff. It's a great program. When my daughter was born, she's going to be 15 on Monday, by the way, which is crazy. My fucking kid is about to be 15. That's nuts. I feel so old saying that. Her mother was getting WIC assistance and food stamps and didn't stay on food stamps very long because she used it as a springboard to get in a better financial position so she can get on her feet and survive, which is respectable. That's what the welfare system is supposed to be. It's supposed to be temporary, not permanent. But we have a situation where with Section 8, the rent subsidy, the housing subsidy program, with Section 8, you got people passing down project apartments from generation to generation. That's not the way the welfare program was supposed to work. But it's good that he's funding the WIC program because at least the babies are going to get what they need. So I'm not opposed to this. And I think any food program that should remain in place would be WIC because at the end of the day, the baby's got to eat, man. And WIC is actually temporary because once the baby reaches a certain age, those benefits stop. So there is a stopgap on the WIC disbursements as opposed to the food stamps where you can just keep getting it over and over and recertifying every 6 months perpetually year after year after year after year. In fact, one woman that was making threats about stealing people's groceries, she made a video, or amongst the videos where these women were making threats. One woman said, y'all don't know how to get on food stamps. If you don't qualify, just lie. And she made a video instructing people to basically defraud the system. And because of her video, she was arrested, charged with fraud, and ordered to repay $35,000. Because that's how much money in food stamps she had gotten over the years because she lied. And it's people like that are the reason why the system now has to be destroyed and rebuilt. But yeah, I think this is good. And you notice it's funding from tariffs, not taxpayers' money from working people, tariffs, import tax money. That's the way the country is supposed to be operating. The government is supposed to run off of tariff, trade, import taxes, not income taxes. So again, it looks like there's a major economic restructuring happening within the federal government via the Trump administration. And I think this is awesome sauce. Now, for all those who believe that Trump shut down the government and Trump cutting off the food stamps, for all y'all that believe that nonsense, here is some confirmation that the Democrats are responsible for the shutdown. Thus, any adverse effects that happen to the people and the recipients of the government welfare benefits, the entitlement programs that are adversely affected, it's the Democrats to blame. The same Democrats that advocated for these welfare programs. They're now willing to let those programs go unfunded just so they can give illegals money. So they're willing to watch Americans not get food stamps because they can't give the illegal aliens free health care. As a committed Democrat, this is John Fetterman. As a committed Democrat, I'm dismayed my party is playing chicken with the food security of 42 million Americans. And I'm glad that he said that because coming from a Democrat, that carries a lot of weight. I never thought I'd see the day where I'd have to say that. But in this case, it's true. And it's well known and confirmed that the Democrats are responsible for the government shutdown. 60 yes votes are required to reopen the government with a clean continuing resolution. The Republicans voted yes. 53 Republicans in Congress, in the Senate, voted yes for the continuing resolution. One Democrat and one independent voted yes for 55 votes. So they're 5 votes short of reopening the government. Now, who all voted no? Well, let's have a look, shall we? Democrats have voted to keep the government closed for the 13th time. So there's been 13 votes since this shutdown. And the Democrats kept voting no because they want to give money to illegals. Here's a list of who vote of the no votes for when Democrats eventually wrongly blame Republicans for the shutdown. And as you can see, the list of names, all Democrats. Democrat, 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 Democrat. What? Rand Paul of Kentucky also voted no. I don't know what happened to Rand Paul, but he ain't been right since his liberal neighbor, beat the brakes off him. He's been doing a lot of bullshit. But Rand Paul voted no. So if 4 of these Democrats plus Rand Paul actually voted yes on the next vote for the continuing resolution, the government would reopen. If 5 of those Democrats on the list voted yes, the government would reopen. So essentially, it's the Democrats keeping the government shut down. And they're doing it on purpose so they can blame Trump. So they're willing to let their own constituents, their own voters, lose their food stamps just so they can get in the media and say it's Trump's fault. That is some sick shit. This is why we say the Democratic Party, or this is why we say liberalism is a mental disorder. This is why we say that, because it has to be true. Because for any voter to support a political party that's willing to let you starve just so they can give money, your tax money, to illegals, if you vote for those people, you're suicidal. I mean, what else is there to call it? That's political suicide. Barnes says elections in New Jersey, Virginia, and New York City happen Tuesday. Nice. Nice. So again, shutting down the food stamp program will lower the food prices because it gets rid of the artificial inflation. What's up, Miss Keita? Shutting down the food stamps will also take away a large portion of the Democrats' leverage, political leverage. They won't have the EBT program to bribe their voters with anymore. And the best part about this whole shit is how Trump is finessing the whole thing. Because he knows the Democrats hate him. And he also knows that the Democrats will fight to the death for the bullshit they support. So let them keep fighting for the bullshit. Let them keep supporting the bullshit. Let them keep voting no to bills that make sense to reopen the government. And let the EBT program go belly up. They're going to lose their supporters. Not because the supporters are savvy enough to know it's the Democrats' fault that all this is happening. They're going to lose their supporters because they won't have the EBT SNAP program to bribe them with anymore. Because the whole slavery, racism narrative, it don't work with elections anymore. Black people are tired of hearing that shit. Black people want to hear a real plan that gives real solutions, not no symbolic bullshit. Has your life gotten better as a Black American since Juneteenth the holiday was established? Nope. Has your life gotten better since Martin Luther King Day? Nope. because it's symbolic bullshit. There's nothing tangible. There's nothing real there. And the only thing tangible that the Democrats have that they can offer their voters is the entitlement programs. So they advocate for the entitlement programs. But with the elimination of the entitlement programs also comes the elimination of whatever issue the Democrats could use as leverage to gain support. So Trump's not the reason why the government's shut down, and Trump's not the one cutting off food stamps. The Democrats are. And that, ladies and gentlemen, that is the truth of the matter. That is some master level finesse that Trump is running on these Democrats right now. And I love it. I love it. And I want to see more of it. So the part that everybody's missing who's talking about this possible EBT shutdown, the part that everybody's missing is the fact that food prices are going to go down because the expansion of the EBT program is what caused the inflation to drive up the food prices. So in order to reverse that inflation, you have to remove the government subsidy from the equation and let the free market do what it does. And as a natural response to overstock, prices will go down. And they might go down far enough to where even, again, the EBT recipients can benefit from it because now food costs less and they should be able to fit it in their budgets if they're responsible enough. So now this forces the EBT recipients who at least have it in them to be somewhat fiscally responsible. This gives them an opportunity to put that into practice on a real level. Which will only make them better. But for the clowns that are going to crash out when their EBT card don't work, well, we don't need them around anyway. Because we're trying to build a prosperous nation. And you can't build a prosperous nation with a population of entitled welfare recipients. Can't do it. It cannot be done. Because what happens when the entitlements run out? Money is finite. It's not going to last forever. And Tara Moody says Democrats can't run on slavery because Kamala Harris's husband is white. Listen, if once they labeled Kamala Harris a black woman and they started selling that shit, the fact that her husband was white actually counted as a positive for her. I don't know if you noticed that, Antara Moody, but when it's a black man with a white woman, something's wrong with that black man. When it's a black woman with a white man, she did well for herself. I don't know if you noticed that double standard, but that's how they play it. That's how they break it down. So the fact that her husband was white actually served to her benefit because it got more ghetto black women to want to support her. By the way, speaking of Kamala Harris and ghetto black women, Cardi B ain't a black woman, but she's the Puerto Rican that the music industry uses to speak for black women. And for some reason, Cardi B felt the need to say that y'all should have voted for Kamala Harris and y'all would be getting y'all food stamps. And it's funny that multi-millionaire rapper stripper chick that used to sell pussy and drug and rob men and shit. It's funny that she had something to say about politics. That's number one. And number two, she's talking about the government shutdown. She's so concerned about the EBT SNAP benefits. Why doesn't she start a food drive? But you see how disingenuous these people are? They just say shit because they're paid to say shit. They don't do anything to solve the problem because they get paid for complaining about the problem. So as long as the problem persists, they stay in power. They keep a job. They keep their job. Once that problem is solved and there's nothing left to complain about, you can't get paid. So you're out of a job. But I am curious, and I sure would like to see what happens within the first week of the food stamps getting cut off. I want to see it. I want to see it. And I'll tell you right now, I'm not one to believe everything I see on the internet, but I was really concerned when I saw those women threatening to rob people for their groceries and loot the grocery stores and shit because they didn't get their food stamps. I was a little shaken by that. Not shaken in the sense of, oh my God, now I'm afraid, but shaken in the sense that I believe those people, those women. I believe that they will do it. Because that sense of entitlement trumps all logic and good sense because they ain't got no sense. And R&B Bae, funny enough, she was thinking the same thing. And right when I was getting ready to tell her, hey, starting in November, I'm going to the grocery store with you, she brought it to me and she said, hey, I'm going to the grocery store today. Can you come with me? Yeah, absolutely. So that's what we're going to be doing now because I wouldn't be able to live with myself getting a call that my woman got strong armed by some big linebacker hoes and everything she just paid for with her hard-earned money was taken from her and I wasn't there to protect her. I couldn't live with myself. Fuck the police. I do my own investigation, find them and bring justice instantly with my justice finger. This is my justice finger. This is the finger of justice. This is the fuck you finger. This is the justice finger. Oh, by the way, if you want to be quick on the trigger, you put a tension, it's like a wristband, and it's got little tension cords that go to your fingers. So when you fold a fist, it actually strengthens the muscles on the inside of your finger. You just use the index finger one and you just work it out. Just work it out, work it out, work it out. So that way when you get the trigger, when you pull the trigger, you can actually pull the trigger a lot faster than, you normally would. It's a little trick I learned watching Life Hacks. But anyway, I believe those threats. I believe that they are going to try some shit, but it won't end well. And I hope, like I said, I hope that it doesn't go down that way and people don't end up getting hurt, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do. What I'm more excited to see, other than these looters getting shot, what I'm more excited to see is how fast and how far. What up, Irvin? Good to see you, bro. I missed you too, man. Where the hell you been? See you still got your wrench. What was I saying? Shit. Sometimes I feel like I got ADHD. I look at the chat and completely forget what I was saying. How fast and how far to see, other than. Oh, that's what I was saying. What I do want to see is how fast the food prices drop and how low they go down. That's what I want to see. Nah, man, I wouldn't kick you out, Irvin. You did nothing to get kicked out, bro. I don't just kick people out. Okay, maybe I do, but not you. You my dog, man. You've been rocking with me for years, man. You my dog. I appreciate you coming through. Don't forget to hit that like button, though. Don't forget that, because y'all be forgetting sometimes. Don't forget that. That's important. Elsine on Rumble says, wish you could be elected to president. I'd vote for you. How about governor? Well, I'm a tether, Elsine. I'm not a born U.S. citizen. I grew up in the state since I was a little kid, and my wife's American. My kids are American, but I'm not a born citizen, so I could never be president. But I could definitely probably groom one of my sons to fill that role and be a damn good advisor. I wouldn't mind doing that at all. Shout out to my brother Irvin with the Cash App. Appreciate you, Irvin. Thank you for that support, my brother. And Monday, by the way, Monday is my daughter's birthday. So if y'all want to send some support so I could buy the 17 gifts that links, Amazon links that she sent me for her gifts, that'll be nice, because I took some big hits this week. So, I gotta hustle that bread back up. So support your boy, man. Help me make the Boogie's birthday the best birthday ever. She's a little girl, so I can buy her love. I just need the money to do it. Anyway, I will buy it. Anyway, the drop in the food prices is going to be one of the first immediate effects. Will there be large riots in large numbers? Possibly, but I think if riots and looting does happen, it's only going to happen in specific areas. So if you have a vehicle and you have adequate transportation in this upcoming month, when you go grocery shopping, especially for you ladies, when you go grocery shopping, bring your man with you or bring that hand cannon with you. Or if you don't have a hand cannon or you're in a state where you can't have one, bring your pepper spray or your taser. But go to the grocery store armed. Pay attention to your surroundings and everybody around you and what they're doing. Anybody within 20 to 50 feet of you, consider them an immediate threat. Because any cop will tell you. People say, well, why did you shoot the suspect with a knife? Because within 2 seconds or 3 seconds, a person can cover 20 feet and be in your face stabbing you in the blink of an eye. In 2 shakes of a gator's tail. Well, it probably won't have arms after you shake the gator's tail, but you know what? You get the point. And yes, profile people. Be racist if you have to. If you see pajama pants and bonnets, be afraid. Be cautious. They might just be normal people that like wearing their pajamas out. Or they might be the people that were making threats online. But I'll tell you one thing, you don't want to find out the hard way. So you treat every threat like a threat. And for you fellas, if you go grocery shopping by yourself, I would say don't do it during peak hours. Do it early in the morning. As a matter of fact, it's for fellas and ladies. Fellas, you know what to do. You're a natural protector, so you know how to protect yourself. So I don't have to instruct you on that. You do what you got to do. But for you ladies, go grocery shopping if you can early in the morning, as soon as the store opens. Here's why. because those women that are threatening to rob people and loot the stores, they're bums. And bums usually don't get out of bed until 10 a.m. the earliest. So if you can get in and get out before 10 a.m., that's the safety, that's the safe window. That's your safe interval right there. Because bums don't get up that early. I learned that when I was selling weed. I was like, how you know they not gonna rob you? Because they called me before 10 a.m. So if you call me for a brick and it was 9:30, I would trust that you're not gonna rob me and you actually do want to buy this shit because you want to get started early. I get it. But if it's the afternoon or if it's nighttime, I ain't got it, bro. I ain't gonna have it till tomorrow morning. And usually when they were trying to rob me, they wouldn't call back the next morning. If they were actually trying to get it, they would call back the next morning before 10 a.m., usually around 9 a.m., business hours. Also, here's another thing, and thank you, Irvin, for saying that. He said, remember, we are being infiltrated from within. Keep eyes and ears open, patriots. Yeah, Iron Effie, I agree. They do need to get tougher on those paid writers, and I believe they are. They're just not publicizing it because they don't want the other organizers that they haven't captured yet to go into hiding. So they have to keep all those raids undercover and under wraps until they can mop everybody up. Well, yes, Irvin, you are right. We are being infiltrated. And because of that infiltration, there's now also a possibility of bad actors being paid to go out and commit these crimes, loot grocery stores, rob shoppers coming out of the grocery store, etc., in order to encourage and embolden more people to engage in that behavior. So they could possibly be some false flags in that sense. Because can you imagine if the food stamps get cut off, riots and looting and all that shit starts, crime and robberies go up and all that? You know what they're going to call it? They're going to call it the food riots. And a few years in the future, they're going to call it the Donald Trump food riots. So I sure hope it doesn't happen. But anyway, guys, I've been on long enough. I'm just rambling now. So before I waste any more time, let me see. Let me do a time check. Okay, it's 1:30 in the morning. We've been live for 2.5 hours. I think that's a decent amount of time. But before I go, don't forget, make sure you guys go subscribe to the Citizen Man Backup channel. If you haven't subscribed to the Backup channel, please make sure you do. In case they zap me over here on Citizen Man TV, you can stay connected with me on YouTube through the Citizen Man channel. Also, Rumble. Follow me on Rumble. That's how you stay connected permanently because Rumble does not censor. So all the streams that I have to take down off YouTube, over 500 of them from even some of my past streams from past channels, YouTube channels that no longer exist, you can find over 520 videos of my 20 streams of my content on Rumble. The political content that's not allowed on YouTube, that's too real for TV, Rumble is where you'll find it. It's absolutely free. It costs you nothing, but I do ask that you create a Rumble account. All you need is an email address and create a screen name. Create a Rumble account and come over to Rumble and give me a follow. Help grow the Rumble page. All right. And of course, last but not least, if any of you guys who sat through the show enjoyed the show and wanted to felt like it was worth a buck, then what the fuck? Show some love. You can support the show by sending in a kind donation via Cash App, PayPal, or Venmo by using the tag scrolling across the screen in the banner below. The links that are pinned to the top of the YouTube chat in the black box where it says Citizen Man TV in yellow. Just click the yellow, the box opens up, and all the links are there. The red X through the PayPal is just to remind you that PayPal censors comments, so please be green in your commentary on PayPal because I don't want them to freeze your account or mine and try to steal our money. Irvin says, happy early birthday to Little Miss Citizen Man. I appreciate that, Irvin. I'll be sure to let her know if she's not watching. She probably does watch my show. I don't know. I hope not. I'll be saying some wild shit. I hope she don't watch this shit. But she might. She might. And then eventually might show me to her friends like, that's my dad. God, I hope she ain't one of them kids. Got me corrupting them damn teenagers. Golly. I don't know why I just thought of that. And it got me all like, damn, I really need to mind my manners while I'm up here. But anyway, yeah. So the red X through the PayPal logo is just to remind you that PayPal censors comments, but the PayPal link is active. It does work, so you can donate through PayPal. And shout out to everybody that donated tonight. Sister Elsine hit me earlier today, and then she hit me again for the show. Let's see what Sister Elsine had to say to your boy. She says, another excellent show. Thank you. Well, I appreciate that, Elsine. Thank you for that support. It's mighty kind of you. Mighty kind of you. Okay, I don't think we got anything on the PayPal. Let's get over to the Cash Apps. I think we got 3 on the Cash App. We should have more. Need some support. Support the show. Shout out to my brother Arthur on the Cash App, my brother D. Allen, my brother Keith, and my brother Irvin. Appreciate you guys for that support. It's nice to see the brothers coming out in such numbers, man. I appreciate y'all supporting the show because a lot of times the sisters would outdo the brothers. But shout out to my sisters for that support. Shout out to my brothers for that support. You guys, I love y'all all the same. Y'all have been great. I really, really, really love doing these streams. I wish I could stay longer, but I got to get up early and I got a big day ahead of me. So I got to get to bed and I got to get some sleep. I kind of goofed up today because I stayed up all night last night and fucked around and had a couple of drinks and didn't go to bed till like 5, 6 in the morning and slept till noon. So I lost half the morning. So now my workload is a little heavier than I planned on for tomorrow. So I got to get out there and I got to make it happen. Otherwise, I'll be working on Sunday. So in order to save my Sunday, I have to sacrifice my Saturday. And I don't mind doing that. But I also do truly, genuinely enjoy doing these streams with you guys. I just love researching the information, sharing the information, sharing my theories with y'all, getting your feedback, any errors, seeking correction, getting new information that I may not be aware of. That's always cool. You know, I appreciate you guys that send me stuff in the email. Don't think I don't see it. I see all of it. I just don't really have time to respond all the time, but I do definitely dig into a lot of the stuff you guys send me. And every once in a while, I find something that's show worthy and I do a show about it and I will shout you out about it. You know, the next show we're going to talk about is Trump versus the deep state and how this is all being played out and why it's going the way that it's going and go into detail. Because my good brother, shout out to my good brother, Charles, I hope you're watching, man. My brother Charles left a comment and he said that Trump is a treasonous traitor and, you know, he's become disillusioned with Trump being a good guy. And he was kind of always on the fence, but I think now he's jumped over to the, you know, Trump bad side, which is understandable because based on what we're seeing, it's very hard for people to really understand why things are going the way that it's going. And like Q said, due to the nature of the entrenchment, and most people don't understand the nature of the entrenchment. So it's not until you get a full understanding of what this infiltration and this entrenchment is, will you then begin to understand why Trump is moving the way that he's moving. All right. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I thank you guys for being here. I appreciate the love and the support. Any other donations that might come in? Oh shit. Shout out to Elsine with the birthday gift. She says, happiest birthday ever until next year. Great dad. Appreciate you, Elsine. Yeah, I'm a great dad. How many other dads will be on here begging for donations so they could buy their daughters gifts? Because she sent me a list. It's literally a list of 17 items. She said, and then texted me today, not a please or nothing. Then texted me today and said, when are my gifts arriving? Like, what the? When you send the money, kid. When you send the money, that's when the gifts are arriving. Like, goddamn. My daughter's wild, man. I think I'm really starting to think I failed as a parent. Like I'm really like the I love my daughter. She loves me to death. We have a great relationship, but sometimes the shit she says to me, like it really makes me question my parenting skills. Like, damn, where did I go wrong? One time she called me, and because she calls me all the time, because I'm in the Midwest and she went down to Florida with her mom. So, we're states away from each other now. And she lived with me literally her whole life, from birth up until now, so now she's away from me, and she calls me all the time and we chat sometimes, but she always asks for money every time she calls me. $10, $20, $50, $100. One time I was having the shittiest week ever. I lost 2 days of work because all this excessive rain. Then as soon as the rain stops, my equipment fucked up, and then I lost 2 more days. So money was low, and I was like, man, I was so pissed. Then my daughter calls me. She's crying. She's like, Daddy, I broke my phone. I need you to pay for it to get fixed, Daddy. So it's like I'm dealing with all this shit and watching the money just drain dry. And here comes another bill. And I'm just like, oh my God. You lucky I love you, kid. I would have cussed you out 10 years ago. I swear to God, I would have. And one day I had to tell her, like, listen, kid, you can call me to say hi sometimes. You don't always have to call me for money, You can text for the money, but you can call and say hi. Like, that's cool. That's okay. You're allowed to do that. So she does now, and I think that's great. But anyway, appreciate you guys being here. I appreciate the love and the support. I don't know why I got into telling my stories about my daughter. I miss my baby, man. I miss my baby, but she ain't no baby no more. So I guess it's mama's turn. So anyway, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you guys being here. Appreciate the love. Appreciate the support. And I will be back on Sunday with another show. Now that the cold weather is setting in and the outdoor services are starting to slow down and I'm having more time, I keep promising you guys I'll get back on schedule, and I'm still having a hard time doing that. So I'll try to just be more consistent, or as consistent as I can, show up more frequently, miss less shows, that type of shit. So, I look forward to seeing more of you guys. And I notice, like, going live every day during the day is the fastest way to build your channel. These late night streams, it's kind of like once you have your core audience, those are the people that are going to be up that late to watch you. But when you do it in the daytime, there's more people active on social media. So naturally, you'll get more eyes on the show. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, there will be some schedule changes coming up in the near future. The books are out, so I have to delete those links and generate new links for new products for promotion. So I got a little bit of work to do. So we're going to revamp the whole thing. So with that being said, I bid you adieu. See you on the next one. Citizen Man, out.